Hi, welcome to Sew with Christine. In today's tutorial, I will be showing you how to sew this shawl lapel jacket. This is the sewing tutorial. I have done the cutting tutorial, so if you're yet to watch that part, you should click the link in the description for the part 1 before watching this part 2. But if you have watched the first part, then let's go straight to the sewing process. I've cut both the facing and the main fabric. The pattern is on the facing and I use 0.5 inch for the seam allowance. So I have 2 pieces for the facing and I have 2 pieces for the main fabric as well. For the wideness of this facing, I use the same measurement for this main fabric. If you want yours to be a bit smaller, then you can reduce the width of the facing. Now this is the second part of the front piece. This is also in 2 and I have also cut out the lining for this. I cut 2 pieces of the main fabric for this part and I also cut 2 pieces of the lining. So I'm going to bring in the first part of the front piece. This is it, and this is the lapel. This is how I'm going to join the 2 parts of this front fabric. Then this is the lining. I'm going to join the lining to the facing of this jacket from the bottom to the top, or from top to bottom, whichever works for you. Then this is the back. The same thing I did for the front. I cut 2 pieces for the main fabric and for the lining, and the back is divided into 2, the first and the second parts. Each part has 2 pieces each for the main fabric and 2 pieces for the lining. These are the linings for the back. I've ironed my hairstay to the main fabric of the jacket and also to the facing. I've gone ahead to sew the 2 parts of the front piece for the main fabric and the 2 parts of the front piece for the lining and the facing, as you can see. Next, I'm going to pick one lining and one of the main fabric. I'll place them right side facing each other. Then I'm going to run a stitch from this part down to the bottom part. When I joined the 2 front parts, I didn't close the seam to the end. Look at it. So by the time I run my stitch, it's not going to affect the second part because I will stop there. I'll do the same for the second one too. I'm going ahead to sew both parts of the front jacket, and this is what we have here. Next, I'm going to notch these areas where we have the contour. I will notch them and the curved areas too. I'll notch both of these pieces. After notching, I'll open up this neck area. I'll open up the second one and place them right side facing each other. See the way I opened up this seam? I'll open up the seam and pin this down. So I'm going to sew from this end to the other. I'm done sewing the neck region. So I'm going to turn this to the right side so you see what it looks like. This part that I've just sewn is what I will sew to the back neckline. After turning this to the right side, I'm going to iron and thereafter run an understitch on the lapel area. I'll run from one end of the lapel to the other end. And while sewing, I will sew my understitch towards the right side of the jacket. Let me show you what I mean using the base of this jacket. Now this is the seam. I'm going to bend this seam to the right side of the jacket and sew on it. I will sew towards the right side of the jacket, but I will start my stitch from beneath one of the lapel to the other end of the lapel. But I will start my under stitch from one end of the lapel to the end of the other lapel. I've gone ahead to run the under stitch, and this is what it looks like. The stitch will be visible on the right side of the jacket, but when folded into the shawl lapel, it will be covered. It's going to be hidden. See what it looks like. So if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. This is one way you can support this channel. Like and share this video. So this is the back, the main fabric for the back. I've ironed that all the same. Look at the waistline of this back. It feels like the waistline was snatched. If you want to know how I achieved this, then watch the part 1 of this tutorial. This is the lining for the back. I won't be joining the lining to this main fabric directly. I would first measure 0.5 inch downward, that is on the neckline. I'm going to measure the 0.5 inch that I use for my seam allowance. After measuring round the neckline, I will measure 0.5 inch on the shoulder as well, on both shoulders. I will be sewing this back piece to the front. Remember I told you the neckline that we joined earlier would be attached to this back part. After marking these areas, I'm going to do the same thing for the front jacket. I'll mark 0.5 inch seam allowance on the shoulders and on this back neck region. I'll go ahead and pin down these edges so that the main fabric and the lining will be secured in place. After pinning, I'm going to cut open this edge. I'm just going to draw a line from this end to the tip of the neckline. Next, I'm going to cut along this line, but I'm not going to cut through beyond the 0.5 inch. So you see what this is like. Then I'm going to bring the back piece and place it over this one. See the way I'm opening up the seams. I'll place this over this one and pin this down. I want you to watch this part very closely, because if you're not being careful, you may miss this part. Now look at this line that I measured, the 0.5 inch on the shoulder line. Let it rest on this notched area. Let it rest on it. Once you realize that it is sitting directly on it, pin it down. Then you turn this and pin the other areas down. But when sewing, ensure you don't sew the lining of the shoulder to the main fabric. I'll try to match the shoulder line of the front and that of the back so that the seam will be in place. After pinning this side, I'll proceed to pin the second side. So this is how I'm going to sew from one shoulder and the other end of the shoulder. But on both shoulders, I would not sew the linings. So just ensure the line on the shoulder, that's the 0.5 inch seam, is laying on this notched area. See the way I turned this shoulder so it can rest on the front shoulder. After pinning all the necessary areas, I will take this to the machine and sew. So this is it, I'm done sewing. Look at the edge. When sewing this, I didn't have any issue. So if you're going to follow this method, then you're going to come out with a very nice looking edge. Next, I'm going to bring in the back lining, and I'll place the center back lining right side towards the center back lining of the main fabric. So I'm going to sew. When I get to the shoulder, I'm going to join lining to lining on the shoulder, but on the neck I will sew everything together. I'm done sewing. I'm just going to notch around the neck area. I'll flip this to the wrong side so you can see what this looks like. You can see how this looks. All the edges are beautifully done. I turned this so that you can see what I was saying. This is the shoulder of the main fabric separated from the lining. I sewed both linings separate and I sewed the main fabric separate at the shoulder region. Next is to join the sides of the jacket. I'm going to sew the main fabric of the front part to the main fabric of the back part, and I'm going to sew the lining of the front part to the lining of the back part. So the lining will be sewn separately from the main fabric. Then I'm going to cut out the shoulder pad that I'll be using for this jacket. The height of the shoulder pad is 4 inches and the width I'm using 3.25. that is on fold. When it's no longer on fold, it's going to be 6.5 inches. After marking this out, I'm going to draw a curve like this. Then I'll go ahead and cut this. So from this end to the curve is 1.5 inches. I have 2 shoulder pads cut out for the 2 shoulders. Next, I'm going to trim the edges of this curved area. I'll trim it to be very thin. I'll trim both of the pads. I've cut out my fabric. This is what I'll be using to cover up my shoulder pads, and I used more than 0.5 inch. I used about 0.75 for the seam, so that by the time I use 0.5 inch for the allowance, the shoulder pad inside would have enough room to relax. Next, I'm going to sew the curved parts of this fabric, but I won't sew the upper parts. That's why we use to turn the pad. I've turned the curved parts. I'm going to fit the pad into this fabric. After fitting it into this fabric, I'll go ahead and sew the up area. I'm going to fold this inward and then run my stitch on the folded part. So these are the 2 shoulder pads. Next, I'm going to bring in the jacket and attach the sleeve to this jacket. How to attach this sleeve? First, I will pin the linings together. The lining of the sleeve, I will pin this to the lining of the jacket, and I will do this right side to right side. Then I'll pin the main fabric of the sleeve to the main fabric of the jacket. Remember, right side to right side. So I will have to bend this inward. After bending this inward, see the way I bent this, then I will pin. After pinning this, I'm going to turn this jacket. I'll turn this to locate the areas that I pinned. So after turning, I'll go ahead and pin the sleeve round. I'm just trying to pull out the lining so that the lining will be separate from the main sleeve. And this is the lining standing on its own. I'm going to pin this. After pinning this, I'll take this to the sewing machine and sew them. I'm done sewing the sleeve. Now this is what we have here. The sleeve of the lining is standing on its own, and the sleeve of the main fabric is also standing on its own. Next is to attach the shoulder pad to this jacket. I'll first get the midpoint of the shoulder pad by folding it into 2. I'll hold the midpoint in place and I'm going to pin this down onto the sleeve of the main fabric. Then this part is towards the neckline. I'll also get the midpoint of the shoulder pad and pin this side towards the neckline. I'll use my needle and thread to secure this down. After sewing both shoulder parts to this dress, I'm going to turn this to the right side. Now this is what we have here. So if you have watched to this very moment and you have not subscribed to this channel, what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button, do like this video, and don't forget to share. If you want to get updates on my tutorials, turn the notification bell on. Next is the hem finishing. I'm going to fold this inward. This is the hem allowance. I'll fold this in and pin it down. After folding this in, I'll go ahead and iron this. After ironing, I will run a hem stitch on this part using my needle and thread. So this is it. I've gone ahead to hem the base of this jacket, and I've also ironed the lining inward. I folded the lining inward in such a way that when it's placed over the main fabric, it appears a little bit shorter than the main fabric. So after laying this, I will take my needle and thread and hem the lining onto the main fabric. So this is the base of the jacket when I was done hemming it. When hemming, you want to make sure you hide the stitches properly beneath the lining so that it is not visible on the right side of the jacket and also on the wrong side of the jacket. So we've come to the end of today's tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.